Okay. Is Vicki on yet? Okay, so I'm going to just get started with some of the agenda items. And the joint unit meeting, again, that is in February. All APs are invited, and we will cover expenses for APs to come as long as the supervisor is okay with whoever is supervising the APs. Please come. It's health is the topic, and it seems to be gaining popularity with the med school and all of health sciences. I understand from Vicki, she had a meeting yesterday with Dan Bernardo, who is on special assignment doing some projects, and Patricia Butterfield, who is in nursing, and a number of people are really excited to come. And so and they also are very interested in the poster session too, to learn more about what we're doing. So if you responded to, make sure everyone has registered. And I know today we looked at would be the cutoff date or the registration deadline we were hoping for. I need to go in and register too in the middle of the night. Last night I thought, I forgot to do that. And the reason why we had kind of a little bit of an earlier registration deadline is that the instructors for the mental health first aid want to make sure they have all the books and manuals reserved and we have enough instructors. And so that was kind of driving the registration deadline too. If you miss the deadline, please get a hold of Chrissy. Chrissy, do you have any comments you want to say about registering or anything?
Yeah, so it's I'm still monitoring the registrations and going to start working on getting those to each of the admin managers for the unit for whatever they need going forward. But I did want to touch base on the rooms. So we should have plenty of rooms available on the 19th and 20th, but the hotel is completely booked out on the 18th. I have 10, well, actually, after Vicki and Roger, I have 8 more rooms at not a discounted rate. So there will be some rooms that aren't at the discounted rate. So it would be $179 for the 18th. And so I received quite a few emails about people who still needed rooms. So I'll be sending out some emails to those people who emailed me and hoping that they can email me back today so I can just get that final group. I have to submit it directly to the hotel because they have to do the reservation themselves. And then those people would just provide their credit or debit card at the time that they check in. So there may be a few people who still need rooms. I talked with Vicki about it. I don't know, I'll put out a list of additional hotels that are in the area. I know a couple of other people have booked at other hotels. So that's kind of the update there.
Chrissy, this is Margaret. And some of us stay with other people, and they don't seem to have any rooms in the block with a double-double. And, at least the reservation I made, they said, well, we'll see what we can do when you get here. And I said, well, that doesn't cut it, we need some with double rooms. And so maybe you could check on that.
Yeah, and if you know for sure, if anyone knows that they do want to share a room with someone, please let me know, because I'm talking directly with our conference manager, and her assistant are helping with all of the room reservation process. So I'm sure that that's probably something that they could do on their end. I don't know if it was hotel staff that said that, but the people that I'm working with specifically should be able to do that. So if you know that you want to share a room with someone, please let me know, and I'll talk with them about making sure that you have a double room so we can hopefully get that all squared away.
Okay. Any other questions for Chrissy regarding registration? We're really excited to have Roger Redekamp, who is the new National Extension Health Director. He used to be, many of you remember him from when he was in Oregon. Then he was Director of Extension at The Ohio State, and now he has moved to this position. So he'll be coming in the morning. Vicki will be there. We have both deans. We have the Dean of Connors and the Dean of the Med School. Dean T at the med school is going to be presenting. They'll be co-presenting. And we have a number of other faculty from the med school, health sciences, that will be presenting. In addition to many of you I know are working on, are on presenting also workshops, or definitely I hope we'll bring posters. So I think it's going to be a really good conference. I'm excited for this one. Any last questions about the joint unit meeting? On Thursday will be in the morning, will be our unit meeting. Pam Watson will be giving her third-year review, and Brian Brandt will be presenting his intensive review and looking at going for promotion in the summer. So those two presentations will be in the morning. We will then follow that up with just a unit update and other unit business in the morning. We'll have lunch, and then we'll break into those going to the youth. And I understand there's about, was there 27 people I think signed up for the youth mental health first aid, and 40 some signed up, almost 50 signed up for the adult mental health first aid. That's not just all our unit, that's from across everyone who's coming, but that was great. And I had emailed last night back and forth with the presenters for the youth version, and they're really excited to have that many people attending. So other questions? No?
Okay. Doreen, this is Vicki. I
Yay.
have been looking at the agenda. I'm very excited about the our joint unit meeting. I think there's going to be lots of opportunities for interaction, you know, between individuals in different units and extension, and interaction with individuals outside of extension. So I'm excited, and I'm excited to, you know, to meet everyone face to face.
Right. Well, I'm going to thank you, Vicki. And it's really a pleasure and an honor to have Vicki. We're the first unit to have Vicki booked with us. And she'll be I want her to introduce herself to all of you. Few of you may know her from, she's been with WSU. I'll let her talk all about that. And I'm going to turn it over to Vicki. And Vicki, thank you so much for taking time to meet with us.
Thanks, Doreen. And can everyone hear me? I'm sitting in the lobby at the Marriott Courtyard in Pullman. I'm also at a soil health extension conference, and I just pulled out, so I don't have my computer there, but I want to make sure that you can hear me. I'm sitting in the end of the hallway talking, and I know everyone keeps looking down at me. Can you guys hear me okay?
You're fine. You're great.
Okay. Okay, so I'm not sure where to start. Many of you know me fairly well. Others may not know me at all, so I don't want to bore you with details. I've been on the job in extension for, I think this is my 13th day, not counting January 1st. I have been at Washington State University for almost 36 years, and I actually came out and interviewed for the faculty position that I held for many years in the summer of 1983, so it was probably 37 plus years ago since I made my first affiliation with Washington State University. By training, I'm not sure what I am. My undergraduate degree was in pure economics, but I also had a second undergraduate degree in human nutrition. And that's sort of how I got into the Ag Econ for my master's and PhD. I was very interested in food, consumption, production. I didn't know anything about production of food at the time, but it was really more from a human health, you know, sort of how economics impacts, you know, availability and ability of consumers to consume healthy diets. So that was sort of my initial, you know, sort of getting into Ag Econ, and had some of my early research was funded by Food Nutrition Service and looked at, you know, sort of combination of food stamp what was food stamp program at the time and cashing out and impact of economics on, you know, availability of a nutritious diet. More recently looked at food deserts and have gotten into a lot of sort of production consumption related kind of sort of issues. What for the next 6 months, I'm still I'm only half of my time as an extension. It's moving into a 100% position, but I'm currently also chair of the Department of Apparel Merchandising, Design, and Textiles. And there's not an obvious another person to immediately step in as chair. And so the dean asked me to stay in that position. We're starting a search and to transition out of that position so that department wasn't left hanging, you know, as I transitioned to 100% extension. So if I'm not so available this semester, it's only because of this transition time. 13 days, I've learned a lot. I thought I knew a lot about the university and a lot about extension from, you know, the outside, but I'm learning a lot. I'm learning about the breadth of everything that we do in the 3 units, you know, and in academic departments. Looking at my list, I'm already going to lots of different activities, and Doreen, have you talked about sort of the plan for rollout of some visits around the state?
Not yet, but we can do that, or you can either touch on it, or I can, after you're done, then I'll be glad to talk about how we're working on it with a team of people.
Okay, so I'll just say there's a plan for March, April, May, and June, you know, to organize some what sounds like really exciting activities around the state. You know, but I'm also already participating in lots of different things, you know, representing extension. On Friday, I'm heading to Olympia for the Cascadia Grains Conference. I was involved in that actually already as a faculty member because some of my research more recently has looked at the impact of social media on sort of linking small scale farms to local markets, you know, and some sort of a systems approach to that. So I'm going to be over in Olympia on Friday and Saturday with the Cascadia Grains Conference. I just got back from a conference, and this is more of a development conference on fundraising. And all of you, or you may or may not be aware, the university is, you know, sort of in the pre-silent stage of a new campaign and a lot of emphasis on fundraising. And I think there's lots of opportunities in extension, you know, for us to get more support for programs that we have, or even new programs that we currently don't have. And so you'll be hearing a lot more in the future about that, but that was sort of a first step. And I think I'll stop with talking about myself. Do we want to do introductions around everyone on the call? Because I can't see, because I don't have my computer, who's all on the phone. And I know there's 40 plus people.
Yeah, there's 45 of us. I'm wondering should we do like a Q&A? And then if you have a question, introduce yourself and where you're at in your role, and then ask a question from there. Would that be okay? Otherwise, it might take a bit to go around 45 people.
That sounds good. And what I've taught for many years, and what I always tell individuals, if you may have a question and I may not have an answer, and I don't make up things on the spot, but also asking a question sometimes alerts me to, you know, the importance of things. And even though I don't have immediate answers, you know, it becomes on my radar screen.
Okay. Well, who might have a question? Who wants to open it up? Anybody with a question?
Hey, Doreen?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay, so this is Brian Brandt with Pierce County Extension, also senator for the group. I'm wondering more about what information we can share about how the campus can interface with us. So you're aware of that in the sense that, like, I'm doing research around experiential education and training teachers or after school providers. So there's this different world that I work in that people may not generally know about if they assume I am traditionally 4-H traditional club program work. So I think there's these other
So-
areas that may be important to know about that aren't of our traditional, what the stereotype is of what 4-H is.
So does anyone have any suggestions? Because I'm very, very interested in learning more about, about everything that's going on, and traditional, non-traditional approaches to things. Does anyone obviously you can send me information, but Doreen, would part of this be included in the visits around the state?
Yeah, Jana, you're part of the committee, I think as far as represented on our unit, you're the only one as part of our unit. Do you want to share some of the ideas with that? So ended up, Jennifer Marquis volunteered to help serve on the committee, Master Garden Coordinator. Jana Ferris volunteered from our unit to serve. Cliff Moore was originally with Extension way back when, in the old days, they did the Tour de Top, I guess it was called that. And they put everyone on a bus and drove around, and we just don't have the people power nor the time to do that kind of. So, Jana, do you want to, and then Deborah Hanson also joined us on the call. I think that was everybody. And so we started planning, and Vicki wants to have, we were thinking more of a day or day and a half each month, starting in March, going around the state. And so, Jana, do you want to talk about the idea that came up?
Sure. We're looking at probably 4 locations, but we're not sure if we're going to go with what has historically been districts. But we're looking into having like almost kind of like an RFP for people to propose what they would like to present, and then the committee wants to look at that and see if there's any logical pairings of folks, and making sure that we don't lean too heavily on one program or another, but given trying to figure out how to give Vicki a good sampling of what we do, and just conversation around how what we do can contribute to the overall university, how it contributes to the overall community, and just give her an opportunity to interact with folks that are actually out here doing the work. So we've got another meeting coming up. We're also, something that is pretty innovative, Don McMorrin started this, putting together an interactive map across the state about who's where and what, but also linking these RFPs and or these posters to that interactive map, so that, I can imagine Vicki going around to all the areas. She probably can't remember what all 100 of us are doing at any one time, but she'll be able to look at this map, as will members of the public and our legislators or whatever, but look at it, click on an area, and show what different programs are going on there. So we're just beginning to formulate this. We've got another meeting coming up in another week, putting together this RFP idea. And I'd like to encourage everyone to respond to that and be able to show Vicki exactly what goes on in the youth and family unit that may not be so apparent. As Brian was talking about the 4-H program, we do some innovative things with the 4-H program, but not everybody sees that because of their overall stereotypes. So I'd encourage everybody, when those come out, to reply with those and be thinking strategically about, here's what I do, and think about how that can connect back to campus or can connect back to the community.
The thing that kind of separates us from the ag folks is that, they do a lot of tours and they can take people out and show them different things, and we run a different, this is Margaret, and we kind of run a different kind of a program, and so it's difficult that way.
We're also wanting folks to have program participants at these locations and bring in volunteers. Like what we do, it's really difficult, you're right, to take somebody to where we do what we do. But if we could bring some program participants in, people that have benefited from our programs, youth, volunteers, that can speak to what the value of the program has been to them.
And Margaret, given that I'm a human scientist, I've struggled with that most of my career of trying to show what I do. And so I do understand, you know, going to an ag field is a little bit different than looking at programs, you know, that involve humans and there's not just one thing that we're looking at. The other thing I wanted to emphasize is Chrissy and I met yesterday with marketing and communications, and Chrissy, am I correct that I heard that they will have someone, either Scott or Seth will be along with us to help document some of what some of what's being presented and some of what we're hearing and seeing, and we'll be writing articles, you know, for internal and external audiences about what extension is.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to work with us on having someone there that can help us with the events as they're happening, so we can have some live feed and updates and everything.
Great. I think Jana and the others, when they created this idea with this interactive map, and another use for it is that while Vicki is only going to be able to make it to about 4 kind of regional places, later on in the summer, the fall, then, you know, could be going to one of those locations and could kind of span over that map and say, oh, I didn't get to hear about this one, but this would be a great one to look at. But I also think, Brian, that's where if you would write up the experiential ed and teaching, doing that, you know, we can direct others to look at the map too and see what all we're doing in the program, or in extension, very broadly. So it's just in the infancy of creation, but I think it'll really hopefully have far more even taking county commissioners or county elected officials to say, look on the map, this is what we're doing in Pierce County, or this is what we're doing. I mean, we can always add to that map. It's not a one-time and done. And I think that's what the group was also looking at. So again, this is just in the infancy. Cliff Moore is creating the first one. He's going to send it out to all of us to kind of look at and kind of discuss. And then I would assume sometime the first part of February or second week of February, I think, you know, be watching for that. But you can also be thinking about, you know, what do we want to highlight? What do I do that I want to highlight, or I think is, you know, would be of interest and really exciting to see or know about.
So Doreen, can we have just that general, I think the stereotype of 4-H can be written up generally for the whole state and some kind of general thing. But I think, again, that our strength is that, and people don't understand, is like, even look at the Adolescent Leadership Committee. They're doing trainings for people outside of 4-H. I do a ton of training for people outside of that traditional mainstream. And that's the piece that I think people don't understand, to see what the gift extension is.
Yeah, no, and we'll have to make sure that's communicated in there to make sure people understand that. And you know, I guess I look at that many faculty in the different areas, program areas, do interact with people in new and different ways, or are working with different clientele group that or expanding the work. I mean, I keep hearing SNAP Ed, it's PSE work. You know, what are we doing differently there? And how making sure that's communicated. That's just an idea. Vicki, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
I don't think that was me.
Oh, okay. Other questions for Vicki? One of the questions that came in the chat, I'm trying to look here, is looking at, many people are excited about the interactive map and web pages. Is it possible to include faculty web pages with this project as well? And I know Zena Edwards down in Clark County had the question about, you know, new, you know, with health extension, there's some new partnerships and possibilities. I guess the continued discussion of how do we sunset some of our more traditional programs that perhaps do not have the population or the economic impact that the new proposed health extension program may have. And I think many people I know in 4-H and others are looking at, you know, we can't keep adding on and on and on. How are we going to help to sunset some programs? Any thoughts?
So, Doreen, I'm not completely sure that I understand the question. So is the question that there may be new opportunities, but we need to stop doing some things in order to have the capacity to take advantage of the new opportunities? I
think that's, yes. And Zena doesn't have I don't believe doesn't have a microphone to be able to address. One of them was in particular, they're asking like food preservation. We may need to work with 4-H, oh, never mind. On this as a state requirement for 4-H leaders to be trained in food preservation, but maybe in the count, some of those who were doing food preservation, they felt that it's, you know, is that there's a real balance, or how do we decide what we're going to be able to give up to take on new projects? And you're right, because of capacity and the lack of people.
Well, we always talk about that when new stuff comes up, and people get excited about new things and they jump on board, but we don't drop any of the old stuff off. You know, because you know, I'm concerned about making a big decision that we drop this or we drop that, because it may not be applicable to another area, where one area it's a weak program and it could be let go, but another area it's something strong. And so I don't like us to make blanket decisions about what we keep and what we don't keep, you know, based on that sort of thing. But, you know, we all have a lot of things to do and decisions to make, but we never really get down to making those decisions.
And I do think that's an important thing that we should look at. I don't know exactly, because I would have to look at exactly what we're talking about. But in terms of any program that I've been involved with, it's hard to let go of things, but at some point we need to. And I think it was Margaret that was talking, you know, what, you know, I guess there's the, you know, what do we let go on a statewide level versus what's critical in a specific community. And, you know, I think that balance is really important, you know, and needs to be looked at. And, you know, sort of economic impact is one thing, but it's not the only thing that we look at. I think, you know, sort of the equity of being able to serve audiences. You know, there may be small groups that without programs are going to be very impacted. And so it's just not about the numbers, you know, but that is part of what I'm, you know, when I'm going around and hearing and learning about programs, you know, what is it that we do? What do we absolutely need to do? What should we be doing? And what can we, you know, move away from? And moving away from something is always hard, but I do think we need to, you know, to make that decision at the state level and at the individual community level. And, you know, one of the other things is, you know, there may be opportunities for partnerships that allow us to expand capacity. And I am excited about some of the interactions, you know, with the medical school, the college of nursing, the other health science areas, you know, because there may be, you know, there's not resources sitting there, but there may be some partnerships that allow us to increase the impact of what we do and, you know, reduce duplications or, you know, identify new areas.
Okay. And I apologize, Zena and Linda McLean, if I didn't quite communicate that as clearly as you did in there. I was trying to make it broad too. So thank you. Other people with questions? I guess, Vicki, what are you most, I guess, excited about with this new role?
I guess I'm excited about lots of things. One is really you know, I've been in many positions at the university. I've been in positions in terms of research. I've been in positions in terms of experiential learning, in terms of teaching, in terms of sort of managing enrollment for the university. I think extension is really an absolutely critical part of a land-grant university, you know, and it's critical in a lot of different ways. And I'm really excited to help other people understand what extension does and to value extension in a way it should be valued. You know, extension's valued, but I do think there's lots of misunderstandings and stereotypes of what extension is and what it's not. And so I'm really excited to work, you know, from within extension, you know, to help elevate us around the university and not lose, you know, sort of those critical partnerships in the individual communities. I'm excited to learn from all of you, you know, and Brian, you had said, you know, there's a lot of non-traditional things that are happening. I don't mind at all. In fact, I encourage you, you know, to directly share, you know, even in advance of this, of the 4 visits, information about your program.
Okay, great. Gary Varela, you have a question.
Good morning. I wanted to make sure I was off mute first. Thank you for coming. I'm not sure whether to call you Associate Dean McCracken or Director of Extension.
I go by
McCracken. Pardon me?
I go by Vicky. My students, undergrad and grad, call me Vicky.
That works for me. I'm Gary Varela. I am the 4-H faculty in Spokane County. I'm also the current County Director of Spokane. And this is probably preliminary, so it's more of a seed than anything else. But my question relates to how the university is thinking about improving our investment in our APs in all of our counties. And there's 2 parts to that. Part 1, in most instances, and I can speak for Spokane, fully in Spokane's instance, my APs bump up against a ceiling based on the MOA, which is based on my commissioner's opinion of the good work we do. We have a very supportive group of commissioners, but they have all bumped into the ceiling. And
so Gary, when you say the ceiling, the salary ceiling?
The salary, yes, the salary ceiling.
Okay.
And because it's entirely dependent on the county. Now, there's a few counties that have different settings, but I see a couple of heads nodding, so I believe that probably this is the majority situation. A lot of our APs, and I'll use mine as examples. I have some seasoned APs in our office that have been in their positions for 10 years or more. They are exceptionally good at what they do. They are our right hand and our left hand. And I can think about a couple of them that I worry on a daily basis that they're going to be scooped up by someone else because they've hit the ceiling and there's no incentive. Second of all, as the faculty are adapting to the new needs, the new expectations, and certainly the exciting emerging opportunities, those APs, those seasoned, experienced APs are critical for us in our broader work as we advance the priorities of extension and the university. And if I have to push the restart button on an AP, that hurts my productivity. So my question is, has there, or would you consider exploring options for us to create opportunities for advancement with our APs that would include both MOA, county funds, and perhaps university support?
So let's see, I'm looking at how you asked the question to make sure I answer it correctly. Has there been opportunities, or would I consider looking at opportunities? I definitely would. I think salary and the ability to keep good employees is critical. you know, even in a location that's big enough, you know, I know that the typical response is, well, you know, if they want a salary increase, you gotta look for a new, you know, you gotta look for a new job, you know. But that's sort of the same thing as with a faculty member. We don't want to lose good people, you know, and so we don't want them to have to take a different position to get a salary increase. I don't have an answer for that, but like you said, this is a seed salaries, and the ability to keep individuals supporting programs and to grow with programs in a manner consistent with the rules and regs of, you know, the job classifications we have is critical. I mean, yesterday I had a meeting not about this, but about salaries and extension with the interim provost, and I had brought up the issue of, you know, cost of living differences across the state, and this is a different aspect of, you know, salaries for individuals and positions. But the APs had not been on my radar screen. So Gary, thanks for bringing this to my attention. And I don't have a good answer other than to say I think it's important to look into, and we'll you know, keep this on the radar screen of what's important for us in success and extension.
Thank you. That's spot on. At least related to my hopes to get it on your radar. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to do a call for one more question, and then I know Vicki has a busy day. We've got a few more agenda items, and you're going to all meet Vicki face-to-face in February. Any last questions? Okay. Vicki, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to stay on a little bit longer. I'm out of a session at the workshop that I'm at, and I'm going to go back in a little bit, but if you don't mind, I'll stay on the phone for a little bit longer.
Sure, please. All right. So next, I did not have Activity Insight listed on the agenda, but we did have that training last week on Thursday. I went ahead and put the recording. Christy Axtell helped to get that on a YouTube recording. That's posted to our website. I sent out the link. I also did the written notes with that and sent that or attached that there. The one change though is if you've gone ahead, so we had that long discussion, pretty long and lengthy discussion about the teaching. And where do we need to double enter under extension and under teaching workshops, or is it a workshop? Is it a CEU or continuing ed? Is it other whatever? I just went ahead and called the provost's office, and she had, when I talked at the provost's office, they said the extension part is that's where you're required to enter. And to please, if you've already entered it in the other area, that's fine, but you don't have to double enter. And actually she said, please don't double enter. But if you already have, don't worry about it. Don't change anything. It's great for this year. But she does know that if they go to look for extension or go to look at teaching, they'll include extension in it. And so in the pull down. So, again, you can go look. I went through the list about each category and whether the university had it as required or whether it's optional, and I listed the required. And again, extension, those 4 areas that say extension, that's really important that extension appointment people put their information there. Okay? Questions? All right. If hopefully everyone has a annual review scheduled with whoever is their supervisor or supervisors. And if you don't, please send me an email. Everyone should be scheduled. APs, faculty should all have their dates scheduled. And those that are civil service, they run on their yearly appointment. So we just need to make sure everyone is covered, and hopefully nobody fell through the little holes. Okay. All right. Next one. Update regarding counters departments. The only thing I'd like to do is department head meeting. The last one that was held was back in December, and I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that now there's 8 different department leadership changes happening in Connors. And so just an FYI, so you're aware of it, I kind of was a little surprised. I wasn't as in tune with some of them, but Hort has a new department head search, animal science, AMDT, the Puyallup, the Wenatchee, and the Mount Vernon REC, all 3 of the research and extension centers, food science, and communications department also has, and our senior director of development. So there's a lot of changes happening, and I would anticipate that many of them they'll try to push to have them completed by the beginning of the fall school year. I don't know, Vicki, if you have other input on that, but to me, that's a tremendous amount of leadership changes within our college.
Doreen, you're right. I think some of them, I think, are trying to even get them before the beginning of the school year, during the summer. One of the things I think I was going to say earlier, as we were talking about the visits and the program, the learning at the 4 locations, longer term, when we get more permanent leadership in the college and we have a new provost, we do want to do a tour they taught, kind of thing, take a group of leadership from the college and the university around the state, sort of like they did years ago. But we're planning that for the future. And again, some of that is when all of the, when more of the vacant positions are filled with more permanent people.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'm going to move on to Brian or Janet. Do you have any updates from Faculty Senate? Oh, I guess Janet's not able to be on it. She had another meeting, but Brian?
We haven't had a meeting for a while because they stop in December. The only thing I noticed coming up is there's some changes on students with disabilities in teaching and testing. So that may hit us if we're proctoring an exam or something like that. So it's still just a proposal.
Okay. All right. Well, I will keep this on as the monthly item, and if there's something to report, fabulous. Thank you. Looking at next item, I know Diane and Lizanne, you're serving on the food systems team for extension. You had a slight update, I believe?
Lizanne, did you? I wrote to, okay, so I wrote to Lizanne to see how we should do this, and we haven't coordinated well enough yet, but let me see if I can share my screen. We had a meeting yesterday and talked about, where's my screen? Desktop. Trying to share, too many windows open. Okay, the food system team meets on the 2nd Tuesday of the month. This is a steering committee. And as you can see from my screen, these are the folks that are on the steering committee.
Actually, Diane, we see your files, not anything on the screen.
You see my files.
Your computer files.
Oh, my screen is paused. Oh, darn. Resume share. Okay, so let's see if I can do that. Now, screen stopped. Mute. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. My internet connection is unstable. That might be because of the snow, so I apologize for that. So rather than share my screen, I will just share with you some of the things we talked about. You can go to the WSU Food Systems website and see the screenshots that I was going to be sharing. The piece that is probably of upcoming and most important is the Cascadia Food Conference that's coming up in Olympia. And what's of interest is the London Plain Deconstructing Dinner. I think for Family and Consumer Science, it's going to be an opportunity to look at local food, which is not the same as native food. And so there was some talk about doing more work with native communities. And this is an opportunity. The speakers are listed on the website, so please go there to see who's presenting. I would love to go. It sounds like a really nice presentation, but it's at a time that I won't be able to. It's down in Seattle. One of the pieces that came up in the conversation was that Lizanne was providing food preservation classes for some of the folks in tribal communities, and was particularly concerned about the low acid foods and the practices that may not be as safe, So there was some discussion about how to do better outreach, get good research, so that we can support that practice so that they can have their native food, and then also make sure that it is safe. I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that's about it as far as the highlights. And I will practice a little bit more on sharing my screen so that it's more than just a face shot.
That's okay, Diane. I know, and I'm sure with the weather the way it is, that's bandwidth not as stable as it normally is. So, any questions?
Are there any questions? Sorry, I should have.
Okay. All right. Women in Ag. I know there's a big date coming up. Margaret.
Yes. Thanks, Doreen. I want to thank the people that are on the call today who are facilitating sites. We have 32 sites in 6 states. Registration is a little bit slow, but I think with the early bird this Friday, we'll pick up a few more that way at some of those sites. And when you talk about the healthcare topic, the topic this year is healthy farms, and the speakers that we have are some third-generation women farmers from the Midwest who are also working in other professions with healthcare, and also a speaker from Colorado that's looking at mindfulness in terms of making healthy decisions. And so the correlation between being healthy yourself, making healthy decisions for your farm, and how to make those decisions, particularly in the issues of low commodity prices, higher labor costs, insurance costs, and all those sorts of things. And so that's the theme that we have this year that seems to be popular with people as we look at the risk management issues that face women farmers. Some great statistics have come out since the last ag census. Maybe more women are feeling like they truly are part of a farm, but I think we're at about 38% of the farms in Washington are owned or operated by women. And another statistics that I'll talk about that day is that in Alaska, over 51% of the farms there are owned by women. And if you have any curiosity about agriculture in Alaska, one of their main crops is growing peonies and shipping them to the lower states. And so that's something I found out in the last couple of years. And so we're all the way from Montana to Alaska. We picked up Hawaii. Those ladies got to get to the site by 6 o'clock, and we have a good little contingency doing that in Hilo. So after the conference is over, if you're not attending, the presentations will be archived on our website, and you can go in and see what the speakers had to say. So thanks.
Great. Any questions for Margaret?
Margaret, can I ask a quick question just since we're face to face? When would you anticipate the local sites knowing how many people are going to be at our sites?
I'm going to send out a notice today of where we're at, and then as we get a little bit closer, and when you're having to make your meal counts and what the meal preferences are going to be, we'll send that out as well. But I'm going to send out a count today so you can work on your recruitment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Margaret? All right. So I have 9:51. I see Vicki is still on. Did anyone think of a last minute question as we've been doing some other reports? If not, do you have any questions for me?
This is Vicki. I have actually a question for Margaret for the Women in Ag conference. has that information been shared with our Ag and Food Systems degree program students and possibility of them participating? I mean, a lot of the topics that you're talking about sound absolutely critical for our undergraduate students to be hearing about.
It went out through Seth put it out through the WSU network. It came out under, I don't know what you call that daily report. But if you have a particular place where I should send some information, just send it to me and I will take care of it.
Yes, Colette Cassavant is the person who sort of oversees that program. I think she'd be very interested in, passing some of that information on.
Which department?
She is she's at the college level. She's in charge. She's the advisor to the Ag and Food Systems degree program, and that program cuts across a number of different departments. And she's really worked with Manners, which is minorities in ag, and she's very interested in some of the social aspects of our food system and our growers.
Colette Cassavant, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get it figured out. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, we will see everybody in a few weeks in Spokane. Please think about if you have a poster. First, I hope everyone's registered. 2, please think about if you have a poster to share regarding any health-related conference poster session that you've done or curriculum. Please bring that so others can see. And I look forward to seeing everyone in a few weeks. Other questions? Otherwise, some of you I'll see earlier before with annual reviews. But I hope everyone stays warm. I hope you keep electricity and you're safe with the snow and the ice, all right? Okay, thank you everyone. This will be recorded and we'll have the link posted. And Vicki, thank you again very, very much for going above and beyond to make sure that you could join us on our monthly call. And we will be next month. There is no monthly call because we will be having our joint unit meeting. The March Zoom will be on March 18th. I do have a speaker at the moment. So if anybody would like to share a program that they're working on, we'd love to have you share. But otherwise, we will definitely have the Zoom at 9 o'clock on March 18th. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.